going?
Go ahead, Drew.
It's going great.
Awesome.
How about with you?
Can't complain.
Good.
I can't complain.
Sir, how are you?
That's good. That's about as good as it gets for today.
You're absolutely right, Mike.
Yeah, and that's right where we are. We've no complaints.
Good.
You
I'm
know,
glad to hear that. Yeah.
everything.
Look at this.
Awesome. That's great.
Kids are healthy, and so
Oh, they put you near me because
we all know people.
we've never sat next to each other.
Oh, we must be contaminated.
Well, that's what you are.
I am contaminated.
Yeah. Yep.
I've been
mentally.
tested 4 times. Negative every.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting for August 17th, 2020, here at the Londonderry High School cafeteria. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. You have flags on both sides of the room. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing and have good, kind thoughts and maybe even prayers for the leaders of our country so that they can solve this COVID-19 issue. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we open with public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to address the council under public comment? Yes. Hi. So,
Hello.
you know the name
know
and
the
address.
Kathy Wagner, 7 Fiddler's Ridge, probably for one of the last times. I just came down because I just wanted to clarify that Old Home Day was never anything more than a labor of love for 20 years for me. Nobody ever profited. Nobody ever got paid. And I just don't want people believing that anyone acquired any money or anything for their businesses or any favorable status was given to anybody in the community regarding Old Home Day. And I got a feeling that there's some information floating around that people are implying that that it's okay to make a profit off of Old Home Day, and I don't think it is. And I would just like to say that as a citizen and former chairman for 20 years. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Yes, sir. So, welcome, name and address for the record.
Ron
please.
Dunn, 12 Quincy Road. Hi, I just, I didn't know if the council was aware that on August 5th, there was a PFSA webinar, and it was hosted by the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. And during that webinar, St. Gobain's is trying to get an extension of 1 year on their, to install their filter. And I was just wondering if the town council or the town manager or anyone in the town was able to have an influence or put any impact into that.
So what I can first tell you, Ron, is that the council stands in unison with the town of Merrimack, and we are in support of everything that they're doing opposing St. Gobain.
Okay.
What I can do is have the town manager tell you some of what's happening, and the town attorney happens to be here as well. We do know about the legislation. I'll let him explain why it hasn't immediately given us relief. Would that be close? The recent legislation on PFOAs from Governor Sununu that it's not going to take place till 2021?
Right. My recollection is that it's built right into the statute is the new standard doesn't go into effect until 2021. I wasn't part of the discussions for this, but my guess would be because there's still a court proceeding going on, and by postponing the date until 2021 gives them the opportunity to do one of two things, either to mount a challenge to the statute before it actually goes into effect, or to try and work out an agreement, which often happens when you've got a piece of prospective litigation. Again, I don't have any inside information about that. I haven't been party to it, but I think it'll be very interesting to see what does happen, and that it will have an effect on other municipalities as well.
My sister, question, I was just wondering if the town council was able, or the town manager was able to put any influence on that one subject for the air filter. Because St. Gobain's is trying to get an extension of 1 year, and the conference call or webinar was about 3 hours long, people trying to give input. to not allow this to happen, and I just didn't know if the town was able to give any input as a council or as a town itself.
So Ron, what we'll do is, I'll follow up with one of the Merrimack Town councilors who I've been in regular contact with, Bill Boyd, and find out how we can support because I'm sure Merrimack
Yeah.
is opposing this.
Yes.
And if we need to write a letter of support, to them to provide along with it, saying that Londonderry opposes it as well, we can certainly do that.
Excellent.
Which we also attended the hearing that the council in Merrimack had for them.
Yep.
And 4 members of the council attended that hearing, and we publicly spoke at the hearing in support of the town of Merrimack, and St. Cobain was a no-show for the hearing.
Okay. And then just a piece of information, tomorrow night from 7:30 to 8:30, Wendy Thomas, who's a New Hampshire State Rep, is hosting a Zoom meeting for anyone that needs some further information on any topic about PFSAs. She's going to have 5 panelists there who are experts on the subject. So anybody that's listening tonight or that is on the town council that wants more information about that specific topic, she's hosting that tomorrow night.
It's a Merrimack State Rep?
It is.
Who is it again?
Wendy Thomas.
And she also spoke at that same meeting.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. I also was contacted by Bob Ramsey today, and he had his well tested and wanted to know where we can start sharing that information, or if we're gathering that information. So if you could touch base with him, please. Is there anyone else to address the council in the public hearing? Sir?
Good evening. Oops, sorry about that. Neil Dunn, 21 Sherwood Road. I've noticed lately that there hasn't been a lot of attendance at town council meetings, and I know we notice planning board, zoning board, conservation committees, but I'm not seeing any notices of town council meetings in any publications. And I didn't know if that's something we don't do, but I went through them because there was a couple of things I was interested, but I was out of town a little bit, and I haven't seen any notices, so I didn't know if we don't notice town council meetings. It seems like we might get better attendance.
Well, planning and zoning are only noticed in the paper if there's a public hearing. Otherwise, the meetings aren't noticed in the paper. For town council meetings, if there's a public hearing, it'll be noticed in the paper. Otherwise, it's on social media.
There's not a public hearing tonight?
Not that I'm aware of.
No.
Okay, I guess that's where I was getting confused. I know there was some discussions about elderly housing or whatever we want to call it, but none of that was ever noticed, so there was very few attendees from the public, even though it's maybe not a public hearing, it's a general discussion or however you're handling it. So it was just I was just a little bit confused with that. So if it's a formal public hearing on a topic, but just general meetings and what you're covering from month to month is not noticed.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, but
Not noticed in the paper, but
They're on
it's on the website and it's on social media.
Right, but
Generally,
there's a lot of people that don't have access to that or it's not quite as easy as in the paper seeing what's going on the following week.
the general practice by the school board and the town council for as many years as I can remember is they release an agenda usually around Thursday or Friday morning, and it goes up on the website and in social media. But we follow the statute with regard to public hearings.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I know the
I
school-
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, the school board I know I've seen noticed, and maybe it's because it was official public hearing instead of just an annual get-together. I guess I would think we would be looking for more input and participation.
Sure, of course, always.
John?
Yes?
Can I just tell him something?
Sure.
I think it's the next planning board meeting. I think it's September 3rd. That's going to be a public hearing for talking about the 55-plus and workforce housing ordinances. So if you want to go to that's I know that's coming up.
Yeah, but those
You
are
mentioned
normal-
it. That's why I said
Those are
it.
normally noticed, I guess. I was just saying, I haven't seen anything for months about the town council.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say that if you're interested in that, they did have a workshop, but now they're going to have a public hearing in regards to 55-plus and workforce housing. I think it's September 3rd. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Mind if I pull up a chair and sit down on this? Or should I stand?
I suppose you can sit if you like. Since you're sitting and I'm assuming you're going to be staying for a while, I'm going to start the clock for the 5 minutes right now.
Jake Butler,
Name and address, please.
86A Adams Road. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. During the town council meeting on June 15th, 2020, I came to the town council with some current concerns in regard to an inaccurate title and reporting in the Londonderry Times, with hopes that Councilwoman Paul would course correct and properly inform the residents of the town of Londonderry. I had put faith in you as my duly elected official to do what was right. My request was ignored, and there was no correction in the next issue of your Londonderry Times. You ran your campaign based off of the promise of truth and transparency in town government, but you refused to show truth and transparency in your very own newspaper. The Code of Ethics on the Society of Professional Journalists clearly states the following: acknowledge mistakes and correct them promptly and prominently. At this same meeting, you said, and I quote, "I am not the editor." Councilwoman Paul, if you're not the editor, then who is? Under the submission section of your website, londonderrytimes.net, there is a section for letters to the editor. The second to last sentence reads, "You may submit your letters to our editor at dpaul@nutpub.net." Councilwoman Paul, is that not your email address?
Address the chair, please.
Where's the truth and transparency that you so campaigned on? I did not come to this meeting tonight to discuss these things I've spoken about just now, but feel as though I have an obligation to inform the residents of this town properly. Tonight, I have come to this meeting as I feel the need to defend myself and my family's name against some of the possible accusations brought up by the councilwoman. The councilwoman said to my father, Councilor Butler, in regards to certain interests in the town that, and I quote, "You with the fire department and your other son who is on the planning board and works at Shady Hill." Councilwoman Paul, what were you alluding to? Was it nepotism or cronyism? In an effort to promote the truth and transparency that you so campaigned on, I would like to talk about what felt like were accusations of nepotism, cronyism, and backroom deals. Yes, my brother, Lieutenant Bo Butler, is on the fire department. Bo was hired in 2005, full-time after coming back from his tour in Iraq. He started in call in 2002. My father, Councilor Jim Butler, was elected to this council in 2012, long after Bo was hired at the fire department. Where is the nepotism in that? I have applied 3 separate times to positions on the fire department, of which I've never been hired. Where is the nepotism on that? Yes, the company I work for does business with the town and school districts in both summer and winter months. There are also 4 other local landscaping companies who are contracted out through the town and school districts to perform landscaping services. We mow the Central Fire Department, the town complex, and the town common. The town common was being charged at no cost to the town. We also mow the Pillsbury and Sunnyside cemeteries. At the school district, we maintain the South, North, and Moose Hill schools. Sweet Landscaping maintains the following: North Fire, South Fire, the Senior Center, the Morrison House, Pillsbury Cemetery Phases 1, 2, and 3, as well as Pinkerton Cemetery. Green Magic maintains the following: Glenwood, Kendallwood, Town, and Valley Cemeteries. Trimmers Landscaping maintains the high school, the Access Center, the middle school, and Matthew Thornton. Mr. Cotton has always split the maintenance contracts through multiple local vendors. Where is the cronyism in that? My family does most certainly have a deep-rooted love for this town. Londonderry is the only place
1 minute.
I have ever and will ever call home. I bleed Lancer blue, and my children will as well. I've received phone calls from citizens saying they could overhear Deb Paul saying to people how Jim Butler needs to go and that he is bad for the town. You won't ever be half the person my father is. Every aspect of my family has continuously given back to this town for over 30 years. I can remember times
30 seconds.
I can remember times where my father would be at the Laffa Fields, setting up orange temporary fencing with Mr. Sampson long after the sun went down, to ensure ball fields were ready for the weekends. This was before there were any boundary fences at the end of each field. I can also remember the Panthers' first concession trailer. my father and Mr. Fitzpatrick painted it panther orange on what had to be the hottest day of the year. My father spent so many weekends in previous summers helping at the Kent Island Forest whenever he could. It actually became a joke to my family.
Mr. Butler, your time has expired.
Good evening, councilmen and women. Tom Butler, 5 Danbury Court. I belong to a family that's deeply woven into the fabric of this community. My father, Jim Butler. My older brother, Bo, works for the fire department. My little brother, Jake, works in town. And I'm here to make sure that my family gets painted in the correct light. So therefore, I'll be yielding my time to Jake.
Can I do that?
I don't believe there's any rule against it.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you.
It actually became a joke to my family when no one knew where my dad was. He must be in the town forest. Since 2012, my father has given up many late nights to these town council chambers. Why? Because he loves this town. My oldest brother, Bo, donates his time every single week to this town in the role of sexton, in charge of the graveyards. Bo took over as sexton in the recent years and refuses to take any form of payment. Bo also digs the hole for urns of deceased family members at no cost to the family member. This is something that was being charged at over $300 per urn previously. Why? Because he loves his town. Next time you walk into the new foyer of the Central Fire Department, take a look down. The beautiful mosaic logo of the fire department, as well as the labor to install both the mosaic and the rest of the foyer, was donated by my brother Tom. Why? Because he loves this town. When I owned my landscaping company, I would take the boys that I coached for lacrosse every year across the street to edge and mulch and clean up the fire department. Every year they would earn a valuable lesson of how very important it is to give back to their community. I would donate all the mulch for this. I've also donated to the town common and the town hall when I was on the Beautify Londonderry committee. Every year I would donate Christmas trees to the Rotary Club for their Christmas on the Common. Since being bought out by Shady Hill, we've continued to donate 20 Christmas trees every single year. I am sure you remember the hurricanes from a few years ago. The town set up a large drive to collect clothing, food, toys for the families that were devastated by the hurricanes. I had crews help load everything up into one of our trailers and bring it up to the seacoast, where it would be shipped out from there. On another occurrence, I drove a box truck borrowed from Sunnycrest, another local business and family. Why? Because I love this town. The company I work for has also given back to this town in so many ways long before I came along. We maintain a few of the Welcome to Londonderry signs weekly at no cost to the town. We also beautify the bandstand at the Common every week for concerts on the Common at no cost to the town. And as I mentioned before, we donate Christmas trees every single year to the Rotary Club at no cost. Ms. Paul, the next time you try and insinuate that I or my family has quote-unquote interests in this town, make sure you know exactly what you're talking about.
2 minutes.
Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns on a platform that the townspeople can hear for themselves instead of read through the Londonderry Times featuring counselor, owner, and editor Deb Paul. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment this evening? Of course. Of course. Is there anyone on the, before I move on to the next subject, which will be new business election day reminder, I will close public comment. Is there anyone from the council who would like to make any comments?
Mr. Council, thank you, boys. I appreciate that. During several town council meetings and in previous interview and in the paper, Councilor Paul has publicly called into question my reputation and the reputation of my family. The backroom deals, the nepotism, the cronyism, only to mention a few. I will not sit idle by and allow Councilor Paul to make or allude to these type of allegations. The citizens of Londonderry have a right to know the other side. As you have already heard from Jake, who's My family has been in town for over 30 years, and we continually to give back to the community, and we have not, and I repeat, have not asked or seeked anything in return. We do it out of the love of this community. Deb Paul made allegation about water contamination up at the Apple Tree Mall. You indicated that you had a letter from Cooperstown consultants to the town council concerning the contamination, and the town council was holding information from surrounding neighbors. I promise you that is not the case. And what I ask is that you also indicated that you had documents and a letter that you were going to do with a follow-up article. I would like to see the letter that you say that you have from Cooperstown, and I must have missed your article in the paper. I would like to see a copy of your follow-up articles that you talk about. You criticize council members for not enough participation in community events, that at times they show up and leave early. You own a paper, and that is your business. You need to be out at these events, not only to report the news, but to also promote your newspaper to current and future advertisers. That's just the way it is. After all, it's the advertisers that keep your newspaper alive. Unlike me and other councilors, we have other jobs that put food on our table. Some have obligations to overnight travel. Some commute to other cities and towns in other states. We don't have the luxury of owning a local newspaper. And I take offense to that. We have been at the Old Homes Day. I remember, if I correctly remember, we the ones that started the pig roast down for the historical committee. Then we brought it up to the town common for New England Honor Flight. So there are a lot of things that my family does, and I'm proud of it, and I'll defend it, that we do for this town that a lot of people just don't know. And last but not least, I, like other people in this town, come to me and they tell me things in confidence, and it stays in confidence because they don't like retaliation. I understand that. That's part of my counselor as a job, to represent the people. And I do that. And Deb, if you have a problem with me being a counselor, face it up, come to me and talk to me face to face,
I've never
Deb.
said
Don't
that.
start. I have the floor.
Okay,
Like you, I keep things in confidence too.
okay.
And you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you don't want me on the council and you want to get rid of me, at least have the decency to look me in the face and tell me that and not talk around my back. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
So is there anyone else in the council who would like to speak? Yes, please.
All right. I'd like to address the email issue. When my editor moved back to Oregon, and we were left without an editor, we never replaced it. And that information has to go somewhere. The newspaper only has me, my husband, and my daughter, who works part-time at the paper. She has a full-time job. My husband also has a job. So someone has to look at those letters and put them in a folder to be placed into the paper, and to make sure that they follow the rules that we put in place for the letters to the editor. No more than 500 words. You have to live from town. You have to put your name to it. So that is why my email is on that information that is out there. I don't, as far as the inaccuracy, it was really syntax. The whole word of denied, denied kicks in a process at the planning board, and I guess I should have maybe, but it wasn't incorrect. It may have not been totally accurate by saying it moved to another process. It technically is denied. I went over this with Lori, and we talked it all out, and she agreed with me that it is syntax on how you decide the wording for it. So it technically wasn't wrong. And I have run many corrections in my paper. There'll be one this week for a mistake I made when someone sent me something to put in the paper, and I inadvertently didn't copy all of it to put in the folder, and I left out a small piece of it, which I am replacing. Some of the stuff that, Mr. Butler and both Mr. Butlers were talking about, I think if things were done more in the public, people would know what's going on, and there wouldn't be this, there wouldn't be any type of there wouldn't be any thought that there is a piece of impropriety going on, because it would be done in the public's eyes. I don't understand the thing about no cost, because I see Shady Hill has invoices coming in, and I guess I didn't understand what you were saying, so I'm sorry about that. So it's just how it appears sometimes that there's that stuff going on, and that's what I was trying to project. I probably didn't do a very good job of it. I think a lot of what was said is taken out of context. I was trying to say that you can't always just look at me because I have a paper and saying that I'm not having integrity. I put out everything I can in the public, and I try to be as transparent as I can. As far as the letter, I can't give you that letter because the person who gave it to me requested that I hold on to it until Coop is ready to move to the next level. And that's why there hasn't been the follow-up story. Because of the COVID, it hasn't moved forward. So there's nothing I can do there, I'm sorry. Once they move forward, I'd be more than happy, Jim, to give you that letter. I know for a fact, Mr. Butler, you and I were friends. I know for a fact that you are very, very passionate and care about this town and have done a lot. I was there with the pig roast with you, cooking with you. I was there helping you with the trees and making sure that the information got out and that people were aware of what was going on. So I think a lot of things are being taken out of context. I never said that you should be off the council. And I don't know who said that to you, but I did say, I have said your term is up, and I'd like to see a race, because I've always said that, whether it's you running, whether it's Tom running. I think all races should be contested. It's just my belief. And that is what I said, and I don't know who told you or whatever. And I'm not questioning your love for this town. I think you do have it. You're probably the only town councilor I've seen go to, and sitting on the planning board, go to the developers and question them and look at the material that they have there. I've seen you do it. I've seen you call developers out on the mat. So I guess I'm really kind of confused is why all of this is coming at me. If I do have something to say, Mr. Butler, I think you know me, I would say it. So I'm saying it publicly. Again, I know you want to respond, Jake, so I'll shut up. So go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So just for clarification,
Name and address, please.
Jake Butler, 86A Adams Road. Just for clarification, in terms of the mowing contracts I talked about the town, I don't know how much more public they could get. They're a sealed bid process that is opened and is open to the public, and everybody can come to it. And to clarify, that what we mow at no cost for the town is strictly the town common, whereas the other properties that I had talked about, you do receive a bill for, but we do the town common for nothing. Just for clarification and understanding that I don't really know how much more public it could get than a sealed bid process. So
It's probably because I never see the sealed bid process. I have never seen it. I don't know when they happen. I've never seen them. So I think that maybe we should do what Derry does and put it up on, have a RFP page and put it up there.
It's noticed, it follows the state law, it goes out into the public, and it follows the state guidelines.
Well, unless you're going actively, constantly to the webpage, you don't see it. So I don't really go looking to see it.
Okay, we're still in public comment. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I want to thank you, Jake, for mentioning that you do a free service for the town at the town common. I didn't know that, and thank you very much for doing it. Councilor Butler, you mentioned that...
Can you address the chair, please?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. You said that you started the pig roast. Well, actually, it was Eric Turcott who did the pig roast alongside you.
I'm sorry.
sorry.
We're not going to debate this.
Okay,
back
I'm
and
not.
forth,
I just
okay?
want to say.
We're not going to debate
Let me
it back and
finish,
forth.
because everybody else had their time. I just want to say, Mr. Butler, you did a wonderful service for the Historical Society. You cooked your family's recipe fried chicken in 3 frying pans that day, and you served the most delicious fried chicken. And I want to thank you for that. But it was like one and done, one time, and I hope you come back in the future and join us again for Old Home Day or another event. I just wanted to say that, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Okay, yes,
I'd like to change the subject, if you don't mind.
that'd be great.
My interactions at the state, as a state rep, tell me that with the economic shutdown that we have experienced over the last few months, are going to play into the state's budget process, and there are early indications there's going to be some significant work done at the state to reprioritize state revenues that have shrunk considerably, which in the way that the state helps the municipalities with the flow down of funds, we can expect, and mostly for you, Kevin, we can expect a reduction going forward over the next year or so with the amount of money that's going to be available from the state. And we also know that auto registrations from the airport are probably going to be down considerably also, because if you drive by Pettingill Road, you notice that most of those parking lots are empty now. So it's a word to the wise. As we get ready to enter budget season for the community, we need to keep our belt very tight, because there's going to be an economic impact that's started this past February or so and is going to extend into next year. And I think the message needs to flow to the school department as well, because they're going to be impacted even more than the town is.
Really?
So just a word to the wise, and let's make sure that as we do our budget planning, that we keep that in mind, so that we don't get caught flat-footed. Thank you.
Yeah, currently, I believe the town manager is tracking revenue on a daily basis. So we hope with that we'll be prepared for budget season with some sort of trending that we'll be able to follow. I would assume rooms and meals will probably fall off considerably from the state as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, so public comment is now closed. So folks, new business, Election Day reminder for all the town councilors. Primary day is September 8th. You need to arrive at the polls no later than 5:45 a.m. We open at 6 a.m. The town council needs to be present to open the certification and certify the election as open. So you need to be there. We have a new town moderator, Jonathan Kipp. So he is diligently working to get up to speed and everything. So let's make sure we're on time so that we don't hold up the process of opening up the polls. It is the obligation of the town council to spend the day at the polls. I know that Councilor Dolan is running. We'll deal with that as a separate issue, but it is your obligation to be at the polls. Plan your schedule. We are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Derry has now moved to one polling place, so we are the second largest polling place in the state, but we are open the longest of anybody in the state. Plan your day not to leave until after midnight, because we don't leave until the ballots leave the gym and go back into the town vault. That's Election Day reminder.
Can I mention one other thing, Mr. Chair? I put a reminder out on social media today. Anyone requesting absentee ballots or has requested an absentee ballot, By state law, you can only return it one of two ways. You can either mail it through the post office, or you can deliver it in person. There's been many questions about whether or not we'll have a drop box. We're not allowed to have a drop box for ballots. State law only provides two ways. I also spoke with the Postmaster General, Jay Hooley, who lives in town, and he said that he sees absolutely no issue with getting any of the absentee ballots returned on time. He said, in fact, the volume he expects to be lighter than what they would do at Christmas time. So he said maybe in other areas of the country it is going to be an issue, but at least in Londonderry, they are more than equipped to handle what they expect to be a heavier volume of absentee ballots. So again, post office or return in person, and best to request it early.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like clarification for the citizens of Londonderry. I understand that Councilor Dolan can't participate in the elections, and how is that being held?
So Councilor Dolan is running for state rep. It's my understanding is that he'll have to appoint a designee to stand in for him.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one other thing I have, it's not on the agenda, I'd like to get a consensus from the council. There's been a lot of talk about masks in public, and there are now 8 communities in the state of New Hampshire that have adopted an ordinance regarding masks. I would like to ask the council that in our next meeting, we ask our legal team and town manager to draw up a ordinance for discussion in a public hearing on mandating masks in the community. Now, whether that be indoors only, whether that be at in the stores, whether that be when you get out of your car, that would be a discussion for the public hearing, but I'd like to see us draft an ordinance for discussion. Any objection? Okay, so if we can do that for the first meeting in September.
Sure, and I would
We have an emergency meeting we have to have on the
31st.
31st. Let me cover that real quickly while we're here. So we have an emergency meeting to accept funds from a grant on, is it the 31st?
31st, yeah.
So try to keep your calendar so we can have a quorum at 7 o'clock on the 31st to accept some emergency grant funds that we have to do within a certain period of time. With all that said, I will turn the floor over to Attorney Ramsdell. He is here this evening at the request of Councilor Paul as a presentation regarding the legal obligations of board members.
Am I in the way, Lisa?
Thank you. It would be impossible to overstate the importance of government officials recognizing, acknowledging, and avoiding conflicts of interest. The simple truth is that there is no trust in government when public officials operate from and ignore conflicts of interest. From its inception, New Hampshire has held sacred the requirement that those judges and other public officials who serve the people must be impartial. They cannot serve the people while operating in a conflict of interest situation. It starts with the New Hampshire Constitution, where that value is prominently recognized. And if you look at the top of that page, what it says is that's Part 1, Article 35 of the New Hampshire Constitution. It is essential to the preservation of the rights of every individual, his life, liberty, property, and character, that there be an impartial interpretation of the laws and administration of justice. It is the right of every citizen to be tried by judges as impartial as the lot of humanity will admit. It's not aspirational. It's not we should try and do good at this. It is the right of citizens to be governed and judged by public officials who recognize, appreciate, and avoid conflicts of interest. Throughout New Hampshire's history, that spirit and that law, the need for impartiality, has been declared not only for judges who serve in the judiciary, but also in public officials who decide matters that are critical to the citizenry's welfare. Public officials who serve at the state level, and yes, public officials who serve at the municipal level. The law is embodied in many decisions rendered by the New Hampshire Supreme Court. You can see two of them right there, two quotes from New Hampshire cases. A man cannot serve two masters at the same time, and the public interest must not be jeopardized by the acts of a public official who has a personal financial interest which is or may be, not just is, or may be in conflict with the public interest. This applies similarly to members of boards asking in quasi-judicial capacity. Can we go to the next page, please? The common law of New Hampshire identifies a conflict of interest where a potential exists for a public officer to influence the outcome of a matter in which he has a direct personal and pecuniary interest. In New Hampshire, the requisite personal interest has been defined as a pecuniary interest which is immediate, definite, and capable of demonstration, not remote, uncertain, contingent, and speculative. That is, such that men of ordinary capacity and intelligence would not be influenced by it. And then finally, and most recently, a conflict of interest exists if an official has a direct interest in the outcome of a proceeding or any connection with the parties in interest as would be likely improperly to influence his or her judgment. The state of New Hampshire has a conflict of interest statute that applies to executive branch officials. Can I have the next page, please? Or wait, do you already have that up there? Yeah. I have a hard time reading it from here. So, RSA 21G22, conflict of interest. Executive branch officials and classified employees shall avoid conflicts of interest. Executive branch officials and classified employees shall not participate in any manner in which they or their spouse or dependents have a private interest which may directly or indirectly affect or influence the performance of their duties. The legislature has authorized municipalities to enact conflict of interest ordinances. That's the next statute that's cited there. RSA 3139A, conflict of interest. The legislative body of a town or city may adopt an ordinance defining and regulating conflicts of interest for local officers and employees, whether elected or appointed. Any such ordinance may include provisions requiring disclosure of financial interests for specified officers and employees, establishing incompatibility of office requirements stricter than those specified by state law, or establishing conditions under which prohibited conflicts of interest shall require removal from office. The town of Londonderry has very strongly stated its intolerance for conflicts of interest in its town charter. Is that, okay. Section 6.2, conflicts of interest. Any elected or appointed officer or employee of the town who has a financial interest, direct or indirect, in any planned or existing contract, job, work, or service to be performed by the town, or voluntary sale to the town of any land, materials, supplies, equipment, or other property shall make full disclosure of such interest to the council and manager prior to the town's deliberating on any such matter or transaction. The person so financially interested in such matters or transactions shall not vote or advise on or otherwise participate in the town's and council's consideration of such matter or transaction. And then there's section 6.3. No elected or appointed officer or employee of the town shall take part in a decision concerning the business of the town in which
in which that officer or employee or a member of his or her family directly or indirectly has a financial or other gainful interest which may affect his or her vote in favor of or against that business, aside from his or her salary as such officer or employee, greater than any other citizen or taxpayer. In particular, Section 6.3A is a broad provision that applies to town councilors that prohibits them from taking any part in a decision that, break it down, concerns the business of the town, in which the councilor or a member of the councilor's family directly or indirectly has a financial interest which may, not will, may affect his or her vote in favor or against that business. And that prohibited interest may be slight. Look at the last section of that. It only has to be greater than any other citizen or taxpayer. That is a broad, forceful standard in the Town of Londonderry Charter. We're going to return to that 6.3 standard. But before we do, the town's intolerance for conflicts of interest extends further than the town charter. It includes the town municipal code. We have the next page. Section 3A, community officials of the town shall avoid conflicts of interest. In such instances, you shall recuse yourself from discussion and decision-making. Recusal means to remove yourself completely from all further participation in the matter in question. And Section 3B, duty to recuse in quasi-judicial actions. A quasi-judicial action is any action where the board or committee you are a member of is acting like a judge or a jury. For example, when your board or committee has a duty to notify the potential parties, hear the parties, and can only decide on the matter after weighing and considering such evidence and arguments as the parties choose to lay before you, you are involved in a quasi-judicial action. The work of the planning and zoning boards are largely quasi-judicial. Community officials are expected to recuse themselves if a conflict exists or if they believe they cannot for any reason be totally fair and impartial. And further than that, they can't just step aside and like, oh, I just don't want to do this. They have a duty to disclose. Section 3C, as a community official, you shall make full disclosure and not participate in the conduct of business on behalf of the town or enter into discussion or deliberation of any matter if you have a financial interest, direct or indirect, in any planned or existing contract, job, work, or service to be performed for the town or voluntary sale to the town of any land, materials, supplies, equipment, or other property. This isn't an academic exercise. There are real consequences to the town if a town councilor fails to recuse him or herself in a conflict of interest situation. Next, for the town, here are the consequences. A judicial action by a tribunal of one whose members is disqualified to act is voidable if the disqualified member participates therein without reference to the fact whether the result is proved by the vote. What does that mean? What that means is, even if it's a 5-0 vote, if a counselor should have disqualified him or herself, the action is voidable by a party who challenges the action. In 1997, the Supreme Court said a judicial or quasi-judicial act may be voided because of a conflict of interest, but an administrative or legislative act need not be invalidated if the conflicting interest did not determine the outcome. If the town council acted legislatively, a decision may be voided if the vote of the councilor with the conflict of interest makes a difference. In other words, if it's a legislative type act, it's if the councilor's vote makes a difference. Here's the problem. I can't tell you, and nobody else in this room can tell you, and no other attorney in the state can tell you exactly which decisions a town council makes are legislative and which ones are judicial or quasi-judicial. The lines blur. In addition to the town's decision being voided, there is the cost, legal fees, and resulting lack of trust and faith in the town's decision-making ability among its citizens and those who do business here. There are also potentially serious consequences for a town councilor to fail to abide by the conflict of interest provisions in the town charter. If you look at Town Charter, Article 3, Section 3.3, removal of councilors, the council may, on specific charges and after due notice and hearing, at any time remove one of its own members for cause, including but not limited to prolonged absence from or other inattention to duties, crime or misconduct in office, or as specified in this charter. And then compare that section to Article 8, Section 8.7. All willful violations of provisions of this charter, unless otherwise provided, are hereby declared to be misdemeanors. Crime or misconduct in office, in other words. And all such violations and all violations of town ordinances for which no other punishment is provided shall be punishable by a fine in accord with the statute. These are proof that the town has no tolerance for public officials acting under conflicts of interest. Fortunately, the town of Londonderry has not experienced a town councilor, or other public official for that matter, refusing to recognize the town's broad intolerance for conflicts of interest in the more than 8 years I've served as town attorney. I'm here this evening because you, Councilor Paul, required my presence to publicly explain the conflict of interest standard in 2 specific instances. Have the next page. Those instances are regarding decisions involving the school district and council decisions involving old home days. It is my understanding that the school district pays the newspaper you publish and whose content you control. The school district pays your newspaper to publish all its public notices. So your newspaper gets paid every time a public meeting or hearing is published by the school district. It wasn't quite as obvious to me if there was a financial connection between your business and Old Home Day. So I reviewed last year's newspaper just before Old Home Day. The financial connection became obvious when I did that. There's page 1. It's a special Old Home Day edition. Next page, please. There is an ad for Old Home Days paid for by an advertiser. We're going to go through the rest of these. I believe my count was there are 13 ads in this single edition of the newspaper. But before we do, could I have the next page? There is an editorial in favor of Old Home Day. Then we start going through, and every page that I've put in here after that, Old Home Day, Old Home Day, Old Home Day, just keep going. They are on all of these pages. Doesn't matter who the advertiser is. The number of them, again, I believe I counted 13 of them. Until we get to, there we go, we finish with the large full page or half page where it was advertisement. So let's put your newspaper, your business, taking money from the school district and advertisers in favor of Old Home Days in the context of Town Charter Section 6.3. Can we, there, thank you. No elected or appointed officer or employee of the town shall take part in a decision concerning the business of the town in which that officer or employee or a member of his or her family, directly or indirectly, has a financial or other gainful interest which may affect his or her vote in favor or against that business aside from his or her salary as such officer or employee, greater than any other citizen or taxpayer. So let's say, for example, the question before the town council was, as it was not long ago concerning the school district, should the town council vote to take action against the school district to help it recover a tax shortfall due to an error in the submission to the state? Or, again, not long ago, should it discontinue shared services with the school district? Or let's take it in the context of old home days. If the question before the town council was to expand, contract, or even cancel old home days. Let's put either of those questions in the context of the town charter, section 6.3. Are you an elected officer of the town? Yes. Is considering taking action against the school district or to expand or contract old home days the business of the town? Yes. Do you or a member of your family have a direct or indirect financial interest that could affect your vote? Yes. Your business derives revenue from the school district and from old home days. Is your interest greater than any other citizen or taxpayer? Yes. Most taxpayers do not have to worry about whether angering the school district will cause it to stop doing business with them. Most taxpayers don't derive revenue from old home days. In both instances, the school district and old home days, the conflict of interest is immediate, definite, and capable of determination. The conflict of interest should be easily understood and readily apparent to anyone who understands the law. Candidly, I do not understand how you failed to appreciate the conflicts of interest and demanded this public presentation. You were provided with this information in writing months ago after you first became a town councilor. Not only that, by training and experience, you are a professional journalist. Every credible journalistic source I could find recognizes the inherent conflicts of interest and most prohibit their members from holding public office. May I have the next page, please? I took quotes from different professional journalistic sources. This first one is the Society of Professional Journalistics Ethics Committee position paper on political involvement. The SPJ Ethics Committee gets a significant number of questions about whether journalists should engage in political activity. The simplest answer is no, don't do it. Don't get involved, don't contribute money, don't work in a campaign, don't lobby, and especially don't run for office yourself. The New York Times, journalists have no place on the playing fields of politics. No staff member may seek public office anywhere. Seeking or serving in public office plainly violates the professional detachment expected of a journalist. Staff members may not serve on government boards or commissions, paid or unpaid. The Associated Press, editorial employees are expected to be scrupulous in avoiding any political activity, whether they cover politics regularly or not. They may not run for political office or accept political appointment. The Los Angeles Times ethics guidelines, staff members may not engage in political advocacy as members of a campaign or an organization specifically concerned with political change, nor may they contribute money to a partisan campaign or candidate. No staff member may run for or accept appointment to any public office. The Chicago Tribune, staff members may not serve on government bodies or become involved with partisan political organizations. The Denver Post, employees may not run for public office. E.W. Scripps, they must not serve in elected or politically appointed positions. As a town councilor, you must be acutely aware of your conflicts of interest. You should recuse yourself in all such matters, and you should disclose the basis of your recusal. The school district and Old Home Days are two prime examples. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for me to speak, Mr. Chair? Yes, I am. Okay. I'd like to say a couple of things. Number one, I am not a journalist. I did not go to school for journalism. I do not write the stories in the paper. I am a publisher, number one. Number two, I have recused myself from speaking about S&S Metals because he is a year-long advertiser, and yes, I do make money from him. So I did recuse myself and did not speak on that issue. Number two, the school. The school is a separate government with a separate charter. I do not vote on anything. Town council did not vote on anything. And so therefore, as a human being and a citizen, according to Lawyer Yates from the Institute of Free Speech in Washington, D.C., who I went to and talked to him about, said I have every single right to speak as a citizen and as a person at a meeting to put in my opinion. And then I went to the state of New Hampshire, which I'll give to you, Municipal Association, and told them about the situation. I'm going to spell this attorney's name because I don't want to butcher it. It's Natch, and his last name is Greyes, Esquire, Municipal Service Councils of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. He has a totally different opinion of what you're saying right here. My paper covers the town. Not just on that day of Old Home Day, but weeks before, if you were to have looked back in the newspaper. We write many stories about what's going on with the baby conscience. That's what a newspaper does. It writes about things that are going on within the town. Those people spend one time ads with me in a year, and according to this, I need my glasses, because I didn't realize how deep this was going to go, because I thought we already addressed this since Mr. Farrell wanted to bring it up at the last meeting. I didn't think we needed the council, so I was kind of shocked when he was here.
Excuse me, respectfully, I didn't bring it up at the last meeting.
You said bring it up, and I did. I talked about everything there and then, and that was it. I thought it was on the table.
Respectfully, you asked for the gentleman to come, and
then you said, let's talk about it now, and I said, okay. So that meant to me that we were forgetting about the lawyer and talking about it now.
Respectfully, that's
Okay.
not even the way you. That's not even the way.
We'll agree to disagree in semantics again.
Well, no. With all due respect,
Okay.
that's how you reported it in your newspaper. Is that you asked me to have the attorney come? So let's just move on. I mean, but
I
let's
did ask
just.
you to have the attorney come, and then you said,
Okay.
let's talk about it now.
And that's why he's here.
Okay. And he basically says that if somebody runs a full-time ad, then a revenue driver, that would be questionable, but if the ad had run occasionally, it doesn't mean anything. So if you, Mr. Dolan, owned a lumber yard, and you sit on the council, and because you sit on the council, your business doubled last year, because now more businesses go to you because you're on the council. Does that mean you have to recluse yourself from everything that goes on with a builder, a developer, a homeowner that is now purchasing from you that may never ever, you can't, this is his stuff. I give it to you. I ask you to read it.
Did you give him the town charter to look
I
at?
did.
So that he knows what the law
I
is
did.
in the town charter?
I
And you
did.
gave him section 6.3?
I did.
And you showed him the amount of advertising for Old Home Days and asked him if the question came up about...
And he said, is it one time? And I said, yes. And he said, do you write about it multiple times? And I said, yes. And he says, so therefore it's not direct. It's interpretational.
That's absolutely right. Unfortunately, our town charter says whether it's direct or indirect and whether it's any greater than any other citizen. That question cannot be answered with a no.
So
I
I
suggest
did not
you
vote
did
on
not-
anything for Old Home Day. I did go to an Old Home Day meeting. I put some input in because I feel I have my right to speak that. So I don't understand why this is being such a big deal and why you can't let me
I didn't
Please?
interrupt you.
Thank you. Why it just keeps going on and on and on. Basically, I feel like I am constantly, you guys want me to step down. I mean, people knew I was a newspaper owner when they voted me in. And it wasn't like I was the only person running. And it's not like that I'm a journalist and writing about these things. Other people are writing about these things. And I don't understand why, number one, I'm being singled out. Number two, I haven't done anything technically wrong. I haven't voted on anything that I shouldn't vote on. I haven't said anything I shouldn't have said. So I guess I'm really confused as to why all of this has to happen at every single town council meeting, to the point where it gives me agita to come here. It's like, I just don't understand. I am trying to work with people, and I don't bother anybody on this board. I get my minutes, I come here, I don't call anybody. Do I email anybody? Do I call any of you?
Deb.
Do I? No, I don't. I try to stay to myself,
Make
look at my...
comments
I
like you
wouldn't
made
make these
against my
comments,
family,
Jim.
And I'm not going to tolerate that.
I was trying to make a
No,
point.
Deb, there you go again, mixing
Again.
it around. The
It's
bottom
my
line
turn
is
to speak, Jim.
You make comments.
My turn to speak.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to give this to you. I just really just don't understand at all why. I understand why I shouldn't vote on something with the school, but we're not voting anything. The only question I asked was about drought and about watering the fields. I asked the chair to ask Mr. Smith if we pull the drought ordinance, can we talk to the school about maybe holding back on the fields since the COVID-19, they may not be using all of the fields, to be mindful of water. I guess I really am concerned as to why this is actually the real truth,
Okay,
as
I'll
to
give you
why
the real
this is
truth.
being brought up.
I welcome the chance to give you the real truth. Here's the real truth, because you demanded it. You, at the last public town council meeting, spoke and said you were going to set your own rules. You demanded that the town attorney come here and answer it. Then you published an article in the newspaper that said you don't care what else was said until the town attorney comes to the town council meeting and explains it to you. You're not going to accept it. And further, can we go back to two other issues? Maybe this will alleviate some of your confusion.
Okay. This is your forte. You are a trial
Can you use
attorney.
the mic, please?
I am not.
Can you use the microphone, please, that's behind you?
I want the second or third page of newspaper. Right there. Last one. Right there. Okay. I don't think everybody can read it from there, so I'm going to read two sentences out of that, in fact. Because I don't want there to be any mistake. These are your words.
Yes, they are.
published in
Yes, they
every
are.
edition of your newspaper.
The editorial is my words, yes.
Not the editorial is your words. I don't want the editorial. I want this.
I can't even see that. Publisher.
Right. This says
Publisher.
that you and you alone decide what goes in your newspaper. You cannot take the position that, oh, I don't write the articles. You say in there that you have the right to edit things and that all publishing decisions, what goes in
It says the
your
paper has the
newspaper,
right. The
no, it
paper,
does not.
It says Nuffield Publishing has
Oh,
the
no,
right.
no.
That is the paper.
Right down here.
Yeah, what does it say?
Decisions of the publisher are final.
Right.
That's right. You're the publisher. You make the decision. And then finally,
when you talk about, well, I was elected,
I was.
let's talk about that for a minute. I watched.
I feel like I'm in trial.
No, you're not in trial.
Well, I feel that
You're
way,
the
sir.
one who's standing there saying you're confused and you
I
want to know
am.
why this is happening.
I
I'm
don't.
explaining it to
What
you.
did I do wrong?
And you're the one.
Tell me
I'm
what I've
trying to
done wrong.
explain it to you.
That's my job. What do I do wrong? I promote this town. I promote a great event.
When
How is
you
that wrong?
ran for public office,
Yes, sir.
what you did was you interviewed with the local cable news. Not once during that entire interview did you explain to the voters that as the publisher of the newspaper, you were going to have conflicts of interest. Not once.
Because I didn't think there was.
In fact, today,
I still don't think there
we
is.
cannot find a newspaper article, editorial, or anything else that ever discloses that while this newspaper is writing about what the town council does, or that your husband is writing articles, nowhere do you disclose, oh, and by the way, the publisher of this newspaper is on the town council. Why you? I'm just trying to keep the town of Londonderry out of litigation and having decisions that are made by the town council overturned because you absolutely refuse to recognize your conflicts of
There
interest.
has been nothing on the town council that would be recused. You haven't even given me a chance to even demonstrate the fact that I more than likely and probably will definitely recuse myself when it comes to something that I would believe is a conflict. And you know what? I probably would ask you or the town chair, do you believe this is a town conflict? But nobody is giving me that opportunity.
So we've had a number of discussions. There's, on the town council, there's about 65 years of experience in different offices and everything. I don't know how many more times I have to make the offer to you. I've offered to sit down and talk with you. I've offered to sit down and have coffee with you. I've offered to help and coach you through this. I've made every offer I can.
And I'm confused, John. You tell me to do it in the public, then do it in private, do it in public, do it in private. Which one is it?
Well, Deb.
I'm being
Deb.
honest. Which one is it?
No, you're trying to confuse the situation. If you ask me to sit with you and help you understand something and explain it to you or get you an answer or ask the town attorney to get you an answer or to find an answer at the state, that's so that you have the information that you're looking for when you come to the town council meeting. Other councilors call and say, hey, have you heard about this? Or have you heard about that? I don't know how many more times I have to make the offer to you. I've made it a half a dozen times. And you don't call. You know how to find me. I haven't traveled in 5 months. I barely have left town.
John, what am I going to call you about? We have done nothing on the town council, really, in the last, I don't know, 4 months, 5 months. Let's be honest.
Things that you should probably be interested in. What are the things that you think you should probably be interested in? Revenues in the town. Budgets are coming. What should I be thinking about?
I haven't seen anything. I went to one budget meeting. I'll never go again because God knows I shouldn't be there. So I haven't gone. I go to my meetings. I sit there. I ask a few questions. I bring back what I feel is important. There's been nothing going on here. Nothing that we've really of any substance.
Well, there's been a lot going on, but that's part of the...
I haven't seen it.
Well, that's part of the learning process. We had a discussion, Deb. We talked about, take the first few months, ask questions, learn. I'm not going to get into what you said to me because that's not fair. That was said in a non-meeting with the attorney. So I'm trying to help you. I've tried every way I can think to tell you, ask me.
So ask you. Do I ask you publicly or privately? Because you told me to ask everything publicly, and now you're telling me to call you and meet with you, which is private.
When you're following the agenda and it's a question about what's going to happen in the chambers, we do business in the chambers. If you look at the agenda and you don't understand something, ask. You can call Kevin if you don't want to call me. But call. Ask the questions. I don't know how else to do this, other
I've
than
been
to say to you,
staying away
you need,
from
I
calling
can't,
anyone, like Kevin or anything, or any of the board heads, because I'm told that I'm really not supposed to. It's supposed to go through you and Kevin, and I've done that. I had a few
So-
questions. I emailed and CC'd you on it, and I asked Kevin. He got me the information, and I gave it to the individual.
and if you
So,
don't understand.
This is why I don't understand.
Here, I'll give you a great example. We're going through a very difficult time here, and we don't know what's going to happen with revenues. You just heard Tom say we may have a shortfall in revenues. We might have a shortfall in property tax revenues. We may be in a position at some point where we don't have enough money to fund everything, and we have to have a serious discussion about what do we keep and how much money do we send to the school or not send to the school. That's going to get real serious real fast.
And I
But
understand.
but the problem is, in that particular situation, if you're taking money from the schools, you can't sit in that discussion because you're receiving money from them. So if we have a discussion about whether or not to withhold or not to withhold or to go make another deal with them or say, hey, we'll help you pay for the buses, that's the type of thing with the school. I mean, and candidly, ask. I mean, I don't know
None
how
of
else.
this has come up. I understand, and you know what? I probably would agree with you, John. I wouldn't have asked any questions about that because
So-
I understood that.
So
I
the-
don't understand why it was brought up when it wasn't relevant.
It is relevant.
It wasn't relevant then, it's still not relevant.
The email simply was to help. I said, if you have a question, call me. You didn't call. The email was very relevant. It was said in a way to give you an opportunity to say, hey, you know, it's been brought to my attention that I probably have a conflict with the schools and Old Home Day. So I just want to let everybody know that I'm not going to be sitting on those things and step down. Done. Subject over. Finished. This never would have taken place.
But to me, that's one specific part of the school, the finance. I believe in my heart, please hear me out, that I have a right to ask a question about the schools if I believe that I'm curious about something.
So go to the school board meeting and ask. That's what I do.
Or if we're talking about something like we were, the drought, that I have the right to ask about. The drought has no financial whatever on anything.
And it may depend from case to case, okay? And if I think it's a conflict of interest, I'm going to tell you it's a conflict of
That's
interest.
fine. I appreciate that. But I didn't see
but-
any, so
but
I was confused as to why I would be getting something when I didn't do anything.
You're trying, try to look at the more broad issue that Attorney Ramsdale's telling you. His job, and he's done a good job at it, of keeping us out of litigation and saving the town money. Right? Between Joe and Jim and Tom and I did quick numbers between boards we've sat on and everything else. There's 65 years of experience. Now, that may not be of value to some people, but we probably have some answers that some other people don't. You can call Tom. Tom's been on the council for 14 years. If you don't want to call me, call him. But ask for help. Ask for the learning piece. You can call the municipal association. I can call them tomorrow and ask the question a different way and get a different answer.
I understand.
Okay? We're trying. You asked for this meeting. I'm trying to help you. Now, you may not see it that way, but I'm trying here.
I don't see it that way. I see it as, I
don't
understand
know
what
what
you're
to do.
saying, and I appreciate it, John. Don't take it the wrong way. You're taking it the wrong way.
Well, I'm just
I
putting my mask on.
appreciate what you're saying. I'm just saying, the way I see it is if it's not something that's relevant to what's going on now, why are we bringing it up? I could see what you're saying right now. Now, if you sent me something, Deb, down the pike, we're going to see some of this. I really wish you would recuse yourself from this conversation as it gets into that. You know what? I probably would have said, John, thank you for the heads up. Can we talk about it? Because here's some concerns I have that maybe you could voice for me. But that's not what I saw. I was confused because I didn't do anything, and nothing had really happened. And so as far as I could see, it was like, why are they doing this? It hasn't happened.
So respectfully, should have just asked. I mean, I'm not trying to give you a hard time. Just ask.
So I think at the end of the day, you and I are on the same page right now. Is that correct? Would you agree?
I don't know.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman, could I?
did I do something wrong?
No, well,
Could I make,
listen,
moment
could
in
I make a
time?
comment, please?
Sure, please do.
Well, okay. Here's my quagmire, all right? Deb Paul is the owner of the local newspaper. She received the booklet with the charter and instructions in it. We have our town attorney, on her request, to come and explain it. And our town attorney, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't been, I have been, has indicated that we definitely have a conflict of interest. So,
May have a conflict.
so if we have a conflict of interest, where do we go from here? It's a,
He's going to have to lend clarification to that statement. I don't know that he's, can you?
Wait a minute, I didn't say she has a
Okay.
conflict of interest in being a town councilor. There are lots of things the town council does
Mhm.
that she would not have a conflict of interest with. I was asked to be here because she did not agree that she had a conflict of interest when it comes to deciding matters as a town councilor regarding either the school district or Old Home Days.
Okay.
But there are many things. For example, councilors showing up on election days or other topics that get taken up, appointing people to land use boards or other town boards. There are lots of things that she would not, I'm not saying, and I don't believe I did say, but if I did, then I made a mistake. I am not saying that she cannot serve on the town council. I didn't say that. I'm saying that there are issues that she has to be aware of, that she has a conflict of interest, and she cannot participate in those issues.
thank you.
And I understand that.
Yeah.
But did you think that what I said at Old Home Day at the meeting was something that was of conflict, of concern, of the race or the parade, the logistics of the fireworks? Like that's something I should recuse myself from? It wasn't voted on. It wasn't a real meeting because it wasn't any minutes or anything like that. It was just the public talking.
I think it's best that to 100% avoid anything where it can be perceived in the wrong way. I also think it's best, and you know, and I think everyone who's ever been elected to a position learns this the hard way. So it's not just an exception. I think everybody learns it. You say things, you know, I'll say something to somebody, and all of a sudden it will come all the way around to me and go, "What? That isn't what I said." We, unfortunately, in the position of being elected officials, you know, you're in the public, you get judged, and people say things, and they come back to people different ways and everything else. I think we just all have to be smart, be careful, and if we think we have a conflict of interest, or it even rises to the fact that it even came to our minds, we probably do. You know, so I think we all have to be smart and just be careful.
So would you say I was correct that at that point, at that Old Home Day, there was no conflict of interest? Or do you think there was? I just want to understand. Yes or no?
Honestly, you know, this Old Home Day is a bad example because we barely had Old Home Day. And then, you know, and respectfully, there was one ad in your newspaper, and I'm sure it affected your revenue like it's affecting everybody else's revenue. But Old Home Day was a good event with what was limited to be able to do, and we'll know in 2 weeks how well it was staged from a safety standpoint. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. So are we good on conflict of interest, or is there any other questions?
No, because like I said, I that's how I felt about it. I didn't see
understand.
that I did anything, so I couldn't understand why it was being brought up. But I do understand your concern for the future if something may be of that way.
I'll give you an
And I get
example.
that.
You made a comment to me in the parking lot about, "I'm trying to get you." And I said to you, if I was trying to get you, it would happen in the council chambers. I said, what I'm trying to do is make sure you don't get got. I'm trying to get out in front of everything to make sure that something doesn't happen. Now, that's what I'm trying to do.
Then that is the piece that was missing that would have made it understandable for me.
I don't know how else to explain it at this point.
But you didn't say that time. But that's beside the point.
Well,
I think that Mr.
You really
Smith,
want to have conversations we have out in the parking lot in here?
No.
Okay,
But I
good
do
to
want
know.
to say one other thing for Mr. Smith. Congratulations on coming in as the fourth Londonderry runner, 49th out of 400 for the Old Home Day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's it. And I will give you this so that you have it, Attorney Ramsdale.
Sure. Okay. Is there anything else on this subject, or can I move forward? Thank you for all patiently sitting through that. I hope it was educational. Okay, Resolution 2020-11, a resolution relative to the acceptance in funds under RSA 21-P:43. Attorney Ramsdell, thank you for coming this evening. Lisa, you're presenting?
Yes, I am, on behalf of Justin this evening. He and I are working on this together. Mr. Chair, this is a resolution that does not require a hearing because it's done pursuant to 21-P:43 with regard to emergency management funds. Under the CARES Act, the state is making available to municipalities about $3 million to ensure election integrity. And so it will be divvied up according to a formula based on the number of ballots cast as a percent of the total cast in 2016. In any event, Londonderry's share would be up to $56,364.94. So in order for us to be able to apply for the grant to hopefully receive all of these funds based on the number of absentee ballots cast in the upcoming elections, we need the council to authorize the acceptance of those funds so we can submit it with our grant application.
Can I have a motion to accept Resolution 2020-11?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Chair votes affirmative, 4-0. Resolution passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented in our packet for July 13th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative, minutes are approved. Folks, thanks for waiting. I would have done the interviews first. I'd expected that wouldn't have taken as long, so let's jump right into the interviews. We have interviews here for planning board. I'm going to have interviews at the next town council meeting as well. So just wanted to tell you up front that we won't be making any decisions tonight, but we're happy that you're here to meet with us. So I'm just going to go in the order in which they're on my agenda. So Mike, that'd be you first. So Mike, just name and address for the record.
Sure. Mike Byerly, 1 King Charles Drive.
So, Mike, generally what we do is I'll go through the council, see if they have any questions for you. I'll take the first one off the table, and please don't laugh when I say this. Do you have any conflicts of interest that would preclude you from serving on the planning board, since you now know exactly what they are?
Yeah, I think the one area where I potentially have a conflict, in the last year I joined the board of Londonderry Trailways. So if the planning board were to see any site plans related to work related to the rail trail, I would have to recuse myself from those discussions on the planning board.
Thank you. Jim, questions for Mike?
Yeah. Why?
I've been on the Conservation Commission for the last 3 years, where I've been reviewing, as part of our DRC process, reviewing all the site plans, and I think that there's an opportunity to represent conservation issues and water quality issues a little more forcefully on the planning board. There tends to be a lot of discussion about safety and traffic and other issues, and so consistent with I've run Beautified Londonderry, been on conservation, so my interest and passion is around maintaining the quality of the environment in town, water quality in particular. And I think with some of the water quality issues we've been having in town, that's something that we need to look at plans that we're developing really with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we've got the water to support the development that's being proposed in town.
Thank you. Tom?
Mike, you've done great work on the Conservation Commission, so I have no additional questions for you tonight. Thank you.
Deb?
I think it's nice to see somebody getting on the planning board that's not a developer or in that industry, and I think it's good that maybe we can save a little bit more of our land and our quality of life, so thank you.
Sure.
So in full disclosure, We both have a daughter with the same name.
Yes, that's correct.
Mine's a second-year associate, graduated from UNH Law, so if Meredith wants to talk to Meredith about law school or anything like that, please have her reach out.
I will. She just started actually today at DePaul.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so absolutely have her reach out. And, Meredith, my Meredith, sits on the Women's Law Association here in the state.
Cool.
So have her reach out, and any questions she has, I'm sure she'd be thrilled to talk about law school.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, you bet.
For those of you who don't know, I obviously know Mike. Next person is Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Come on up. Hey, Jeff, name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Penta, 30 Holstein Ave, Londonderry. Pleasure to be in front of this board this evening. This is my first town board, so it was very exciting, and I learned a lot. So
I hope we didn't scare you.
Absolutely not.
You stuck around, huh?
You know, I don't know how to tell you this, but 22 years ago, I was probably standing where you were going on to the planning board, and and I'm still sitting here, so there's got to be something wrong with me.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been a resident of Londonderry since 2012. I have two daughters. One is going into Moose Hill this year, and another one is a second grader at South School. For me personally, I've always been civic-minded. From my teenage years, I'm involved with conservation efforts through scouting and through other initiatives of that nature. In addition to that, I've been educated in New Hampshire. I have a Bachelor of Science degree, a Master of Business Administration, and a Master of Organizational Leadership, and completed a Doctorate of Education with a focus of higher education sustainability. I believe that I can really bring a lot of future-proof planning to this board. I can bring a lot of, we want to beautify, obviously, and keep and manage and ensure that Londonderry has that balance of that small rural field, while also managing the growth and the shifts in our demographics that are happening. So what really kind of answered to me, and how I was called to the position on the planning board was just that, seeing the master plan through, and as well as the capital improvement plan that was released last year. Really kind of digging deep and getting really into those aspects and be a huge benefit and voice for the town. I'm a project manager, focused on technology projects, and really kind of large technological transformation efforts. So understanding kind of contracts and other project management type kind of functions, I feel is an excellent skill set to bring to this board. So again, very, very future minded. I want that same small community feel, while also balancing our tax liabilities as well. I will absolutely, if I'm selected, have the town council review all of my conflicts, but I do not believe that I have any conflicts. But I'm not going to stand here in an open forum and say that I definitely do.
Well, that takes care of my question.
Yeah.
Jim?
Takes care of mine.
Nice opening statement, by the way. Thank you for introducing yourself.
Yep.
I'm good.
Thanks, Jeff. One comment is, you haven't been on a planning board before, so one of the things that new planning board members learn, and sometimes to their regret, is that you don't make policy on a planning board. You really enforce the policy and the rules of the game is what you really do. Mm-hmm. And you're allowed to tweak things a little bit, but you're not, on a planning board, you're not creating townwide policy for growth and so forth.
Right.
You might be appointed to a special commission for things like that from that board. But given that, I see you've also checked off your interest in Heritage Commission as well?
I am, yes. Yep.
So if you didn't get appointed to this, you would consider Heritage Commission?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I'm very much, looking forward, looking for an opportunity to, provide a civic responsibility to the town. I think to your point of, obviously not making policy or something along those lines is really also navigating, all of the regulations, and you're really trying to communicate it effectively for our citizens and being a voice for our citizens and really trying to help them through some of those.
Well, thank you for stepping forward. We really need well-qualified volunteers, and you certainly seem to be one, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Deb?
Oh, I don't have anything.
Thank you.
So Jeff, thanks for coming. We're going to be voting at the next meeting about those pieces. As Councilor Dolan said, probably the biggest disappointment when I got on the planning board is there's two great things. One, you'll learn a ton.
Yep.
The current sitting chairman has been there he's served as a selectman and has served the town for 35 years. So he pretty much takes care of all the rules and the laws and all that other stuff. The biggest thing is finding out that you can't change the world,
right,
but you can change little pieces at a time. So, but we very much appreciate you coming down. We're all going to move on in the near future. So, good that people from your age group are stepping up. It's really what we want to see. So, thank you. And if you have you participated in Leadership Londonderry or heard about it?
I have heard about it. Yes.
See Lisa about Leadership Londonderry.
Absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you all for volunteering your times for the many years that you've done that. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys obviously.
We have lives outside of here?
Exactly.
I hope so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ron? Ron, good to see you. Glad to see that you're jumping up to get involved.
Yes.
So I see Conservation and Planning Board. So tonight we're interviewing for Planning Board.
Yes.
I think some of the folks know you, but if you want to make an opening statement, please feel free.
Sure. My name's Ron Dunn.
I didn't let Mike do that because I unfortunately I think I knew what Mike. Well, Mike's on all the boards. Sorry, Mike.
And at 12 Quincy Road. Me and my family are very passionate about environment, conservation. So kind of like the first gentleman, I want to see what kind of impact I can make on the planning board. We're very focused on the PFAS issues here. Me and my wife are personally affected by it. So that's one of the reasons why I want to help. I ran for town council also to try to help. So another way that I think I can help the town. I love being here. I lived just in 2013. And just the way I hope I can help the town if you guys select me.
Yeah, I'm still receiving water for the St. Cobain thing
so
too. So
Yeah.
I get it. I understand.
Yeah.
Any conflicts of interest?
None that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah.
No, I've read your platform before, and I have no questions.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for stepping forward. I know you've knocked on the door a couple of times,
Yeah.
and keep trying.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it takes multiple times
Yeah.
to get. So again, thank you for stepping forward and being a volunteer, or even in an elected capacity.
Thank you, sir.
Deb?
And Ron, if you didn't get planning board, out of conservation, and I see you checked off zoning board,
Yeah.
which one would you prefer?
Probably conservation.
Okay, but you wouldn't mind taking?
I want to help out any way I can,
Okay.
especially if we can help fix this PFAS issue, because for us, it's, as John said, it's a personal issue for us.
We got stuff coming up. We're going to find a place for you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ron. Okay. Sure, Mike.
It's a little unclear to me how many and what type of positions are currently open on the planning board, because I know there's been some people coming and going. So could someone just sort of recap that for us?
A little sheet right here.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. So it appears what I have is 3 full-time positions and 2 alternate positions. So out of these interviews, we have members who are currently on the planning board who the planning board has made some recommendations around. So if they move up, or whatever the council decides to do, it will be, the alternates that will get filled first and probably at least 1 full-time position. But I have to let all the interviews go through. Kirby, where's Kirby? Can you send Mike and any of the other people coming for interviews a link to the wherever we're keeping all of the open positions, so that they're all aware of all the open positions on the different boards? Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. Appreciate it. And that is all I have for interviews tonight. So thank you for coming. You can stay and see us wrap up, or feel free to leave. So thank you. Good night. Do I have any liaison reports? Liaison reports? Anything? I've been to multiple school board meetings. I have to say it has been a pleasure dealing with Chairman Saucier. It has been great open communication. We talk about everything, from revenues to expenses. It's really been great. I mean, there's nothing more that I can say that dealing with Mike has been a real pleasure. Town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few items I want to briefly go over prior to getting to the Town Hall Annex project. First is, as everyone knows, Old Home Day was pared back significantly this year, although the two events that did take place, the Boot, Scoot, and Boogie Road Race and the fireworks show, both went off without a hitch, and seemingly were both very successful. The road race, it was a great day for running weather-wise, and it all appeared to be in accordance with, done in accordance with the governor's rules and regulations for social distancing. I think it was very well done the way the staggered times worked, and the feedback's been very positive on that. The fireworks show, again, people utilized the parking lots, and from what I hear, it was visible from all of the areas that we had designated, and compliments to American Thunder, who was our firework vendor this year, for putting on, by all accounts, what was a really fantastic show, and glad at least we got that in as part of Old Home Day, and hopefully next summer we'll be back with the 5-day extravaganza, bigger and better. I also want to give an update. Councillor Paul had previously brought up having a free dump day. We did look into the use of COVID funds to cover the cost of that, and we've been approved for it, although it's the only stipulation is that there be a nexus between the materials we're allowing to be dropped off, with it being related to COVID activities that may have taken place over the last few months. How we get to that, I'm not sure yet. I'm working with Janos on it, but we'll certainly figure it out. And then the only other issue would be, would probably have to set a max capacity of materials we could take, as the transfer station only can take so much in there. But we're figuring that out, and as soon as we have the parameters set on it, we'll set a date aside, set a time aside to be able to do that. So that is the update on that. The Town Hall Annex project. So if you recall, the balance we had remaining for this project is approximately $316,000. The bids for the project unfortunately came in significantly higher than that, with the lowest bid being around $604,000, all the way up to $750,000. And that is just for the addition itself and not for the renovation of the Moose Hill Conference Room, because one of the ways of doing this we considered was converting the current Moose Hill room into the offices and storage and building a new council chamber next to it. So in light of that, I asked Steve to look into what the cost would be if we were to just finish the siding on the current building and the landscaping, and essentially doing nothing other than that, not putting on an addition. The siding is approximately $5,500, and the landscaping is about $10,000. So clearly the monies are there to do that if that's what we decide to do. What I would like to propose to the council in moving forward with this is we could ask the taxpayers to use money out of the fund balance on the March ballot in 2021 to fund the additional monies for the addition building. And I'd like to have that conversation when we go into budget season in November and make a decision at that time on it. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is spend the $5,500 out of the $316,000 to at least get that siding on the existing building, get it buttoned up so it's winterized, and then if we decide not to move forward with putting it to the voters, we would just finish the landscaping on it next spring. Or if we decide to move forward with the voters and it doesn't pass, we would just do the landscaping. Or if we did put it on the ballot and it does pass, we would do the addition next year with the additional monies.
Mr. Chairman, my recommendation is, I'm very nervous about revenues going forward, and I would recommend that we look for every opportunity, like the manager just said, to delay any expenditures and to wait for tomorrow, and let's see what tomorrow brings us in terms of revenues. I'm very nervous, and I think we ought to tighten our belt till it hurts.
So button up the building so that we can conserve energy and heat, leave the landscape as it is?
No, I don't mind doing the landscaping, but I'm saying don't move forward with...
Oh, I don't think we're moving forward with the project. We don't have the money.
Don't have the money.
But, so I guess the option is, do we button up the building so that we can conserve energy and heat?
And do the landscaping. I think that's...
And do the landscaping in the spring? That's just, it sounds like what we need to decide. Yes? Yes,
Well,
Deb?
I mean, if we're eventually going to add on to it,
Well, we don't know that. but
well, I'm
that's-
just saying, but I mean, thinking about the landscaping, it would be kind of not frugal to put in the $10,000 worth of landscaping, and then eventually we're going to rip it all up to add a bit, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we could maybe scale the landscaping down to a minimal, do you know what I mean? Like,
So I think the
a
town
smaller
manager's
project?
his recommendation, I think from what I heard from him was button the building up
Yeah.
so that we winterize it.
correct.
Leave the landscaping alone. Talk about it as part of the budget process. If, as part of the budget process, we decide to go to the voters and ask for the money to do it, depending on where revenues are, then take care of the landscaping later, if it doesn't pass or if it passes.
Right.
Is that what I heard?
I agree.
It is, yeah. And keep in mind, too, that, these funds are in a separate capital account. So even if we were to have a budget shortfall, this money's in a completely separate account. It can't be used to offset revenues that come in lower than anticipated.
All right, so I think what I'm hearing is button up the building and let's wait till spring.
Right.
Yes?
Right.
Just real quick question, Kev.
Yep.
On the landscaping.
Yeah.
What, I mean, my opinion of landscaping is throw some loam down and some seed.
So,
That's bare ground now, $10,000.
yeah,
I mean,
so...
What are we looking at?
Well, I can tell you if you'd like. One moment.
Yeah, I would.
One moment, please. I know it included irrigation because the grounds next to it already have the budding grass there already has irrigation in front of the front entrance. Let's see. Lisa, while I'm getting this, did you have anything on your report?
Yeah, if I could, just quickly while he's looking for a list from Steve. With regard to Leadership Londonderry, since that was brought up, we would like to run a class again this year. The application deadline was last Friday. However, we're going to extend that a couple weeks, and we'll put out an announcement tomorrow, bringing it to, I believe, August 28th. We're hopeful that we can get at least 10 to 12 class members this year. We're going to run a smaller class due to COVID, so we can properly socially distance in all of our class sessions. Right now, we don't have that, so in order to make it worth our while to run the class, we're going to try and garner some more applicants. So anyone who's interested, the application is right on the website. If you have any questions, just get in touch with me, and you can just fill it out and either drop it off or email it to me.
So getting back to the question, the quote includes removal of 3 to 4 inches of existing base pack-like material, installation of 3 to 4 inches of loam, including grading, power raking, creating a small erosion stone swale to help with drainage from where the water builds up on the fire lane to the closest culvert, irrigation expansion, hydroseed, removal of old section of asphalt from the SAU entrance.
How much?
10 grand.
10 grand.
Yeah, a little over $9 grand.
Oh.
So.
I say let's wait until spring on the landscaping.
Okay, so it sounds like we're going to button the building up for the winter, and we're going to wait till spring. Okay?
Sounds good.
Good? Yes?
A couple of things, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that we should think about starting to work on our 300th for 2022. Not Nutfield, but Londonderry. I just think maybe we should start talking about it and thinking about it. The other thing is, I'm very excited about Dump Day going forward, but the garden group had its first meeting. We got a lot of young people involved, and it looks like the garden group may turn into a green team, making Londonderry's carbon footprint less, and it was very exciting. A young lady wants to start a community garden with a farmer's market. Kevin, one of the things we need is compost and cardboard, which if we could get from the dump, I don't know if that's possible or not, but
Can always ask.
I was told to ask. And I just also would like to know the status of the pine trees that are dying on the town common, just because winter is coming, whether we like it or not, and I'm afraid of ice and them falling.
Deb, I will follow up on that. I know I had asked Jake Butler to have their arborists go out and look at it, and it was the arborist's opinion that at least one of them was dying. And so, you know, if it's going to be a hazard prior to the winter, then obviously we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with that. So I'll make that a priority to come back to the council with at the next meeting on a plan of whether or not those 1 or 2 trees have to be taken down.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like some clarification, please.
On what?
On the garden.
Okay.
During the presentations that were made to the Heritage Commission, it was my understanding that this garden was going to be a butterfly garden, and a butterfly garden only. Now we're talking about a vegetable garden. I don't understand the change, and if that was the case, why wasn't that represented during the initial meetings? I have some concerns about a community vegetable garden. I think it's great, but there are a lot of other things that you have to look at. I was involved in a community garden 30 years ago.
So
There
if
are a
I
lot of
could,
things
if
that
I
need to
could
be
be so bold to suggest, why don't we have the garden club and come on in and address that?
'Cause I just don't think we
I
have.
can clarify it very
I don't
easily.
think we have the room.
It's the butterfly pollinating garden is the one that's going outside of Kent Allen's forest.
Okay.
That is all that is going there.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I was stating that a young lady with a bunch of her friends
Yep.
in their 20s were looking for and talking about a community garden, which Mr. Mack was looking on his property for them, maybe like behind the Grange or behind the ice cream area, and turning it into a farmer's market, which could be held at like the Lions Club Pavilion, and maybe incorporate the Grange to get some canning and actually turn it into a more of a, you know, an agricultural thing. And these kids were very excited. So when I see kids excited, I like to encourage that.
Okay, good clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it? All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are moving very quickly into budget season. The budget calendar will be coming out shortly. If you are participating, in whether it be from the council, the public, or other boards, please, we're going to go into a situation in which I get a revenue report almost every day from the town manager. If the revenue is looking like it's faltering, then the council will, gets notified immediately. Right now, revenues are holding. Expenses are holding and expenses are frozen. What I would say to you is if you want to participate in this year's budget process, please come with ideas and solutions, because we're probably going to need them. And with regards to the appointments of the boards, we'll get those done after we do the interviews at the next meeting. Are there any other questions? I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Our next meeting, we have a emergency meeting on August 31st at 7 p.m. to accept a grant. And our next scheduled town council meeting is September 14th, 2020. The state primary is on September 8th, and the polls open at 6 a.m. Thank you, folks. Good night.